Hello world. In this quick tip video, we're going to configure Windows Laps, the new name for Microsoft Laps, in a Windows 2022 Windows 11 environment. A big change over previous version is that it is now built in. All the key features are built into Windows 2022 and higher and Windows 11. So let's get started. Let's take a look at our domain, and we can see a very standard structure. It's a small network. It's my lab in this case. And what I've done is I've created an OU underneath the root of the domain where I've created my additional OUs that will actually contain my user and computer objects. I like to break things out off of the root so that in the future I can do other changes at the root level without necessarily having these policies apply willy-nilly across the board. The whole idea here is I'm going to have all my systems contained below lab, and I'm going to delegate below that, and then what I will not be delegated on our domain controllers. Just keeps it safe and separated. It's just easier for long-term management. So first thing we want to do is extend the schema. We can do that all through PowerShell. So let's go ahead and open up a PowerShell admin session. And the command is Update-LapsADSchema. This works because my current account administrator is a member of the schema admins. If your account is not a member of schema admins, you'll need to add that or go to an account that does in order to make this work. Go on A to apply all settings as necessary. Good. So that's it. The domain is ready to roll with Laps. So let's take a quick look at how we're going to manage these permissions. So as we said before, we're going to put our computer objects in here, client systems, servers in here, groups and users and all that as we create more users and accounts in the domain. I don't want to delegate. I want to create a specific group for delegation. I'm going to call that's going to manage Laps. I'm going to call it something simple like Laps admins. Once I've created it, we can delegate it. And the whole idea there is anyone that's in the Laps admin group will be able to manage, look at, review, retrieve the passwords that we are assigned to the lab OU. So any computer underneath that will have the ability to have a Laps managed account. So once I've created my group, Laps admins, I'm going to come back here and run the first command, which is going to allow the Laps admins. You can see the syntax lab/Laps admins. You could use a SID if you really like to go to the level of detail, but you can also, thankfully in the current versions, specify the easy to read descriptor of the account. And in the identity, we want to specify the path to the OU, in this case lab, under lab.local, hence DC local, DC lab, OU lab. Apply enter, that part's done. So we've now allowed the Laps admins group to retrieve the password. Let's allow the Laps admin group to reset the password. And the command there is Set-LapsADResetPasswordPermission. That's done. And now we're going to set one more permission, which is for the computer objects to allow them to self-manage via Laps. And the command is Set-LapsADComputerSelfPermission identity, and again, specify the OU. I've kept it simple in my case by applying my settings to the lab OU. All my structure below that will inherit as necessary. Done. Okay, now that's it. Laps is set up and ready to roll. We need to create the policy that controls the actual settings. So I've got a group policy management console already open up. I'm going to go to lab, create a node GPO, and I'm going to call it something simple like Laps policy. Now, before I go much further, I'm going to go ahead and disable the user configuration of the GPO or registry. Because I'm only configuring computer properties, I can make GPO processing a little faster. And this is generally good practice to follow anyway. If you're not using the computer hive or the user hive or portion of the registry, the GPO, disable it, makes overall processing much faster. So users disabled. Let's go ahead and look at the settings. And they are found under policies, administrative templates, system, and Laps. So we'll just go top to bottom here. The first one is for directory service restore mode accounts. In this demo, we're not using Laps to manage domain controllers, so we're going to skip that. Do we want to allow an encrypted password history? Generally, yes. It's kind of handy to have at least, let's say, 4 history of passwords, just in case something gets out of sync. You can always retrieve the older one and try that as well. In the off chance something happened, something might have broken with the computer's connection to the domain, this would at least give you the option to go back a little ways. So I'm going to go to 4 in my case. Do I want password encryption? Generally, yes. Encrypting is good. We don't want people to easily see our passwords, especially when it's just an Active Directory attribute. Here's where we specify who's allowed to decrypt the password. By default, Windows chooses domain admins. Since we like to delegate and keep it simple and keep it manageable, let's go and use specify our group we created earlier, lab/lapsadmins. Make sure you spell it correctly. That's always helpful. And here's we specify the name of the administrator account we're going to manage. Of course, by default, Microsoft uses administrator. I'm going to explicitly do the same thing here. That way I know it's explicitly chosen. If you use some other common local account name, feel free to specify it here. This account, if you mistype this, intending to use administrator, it won't actually create the account for you. This process does not create the account. It just tries to set the permissions against that and security object, against the security properties of that object. So administrator, okay. I did spell that correctly, did I? Yes, I did. Okay, just making sure. Because that has gotten me before. Back up to Active Directory, since we are dealing with a local AD. If you're using hybrid, it's a different story, but most of the organizations we work with are generally local or hybrid with a primary location for account authentication information, local AD. Do we want to allow password expirations? Let's say your password policy to expire passwords every 45 days. Do we want that to still be in place, or do we want lapse to take over? We want to allow the lapse to be in sync. We want lapse and password settings to be in sync. That's what we're really saying here. And then the final one we're going to alter today is password settings, the meat of it. We're going to enable it, and I'm going to specify a 16-character password. I think 16-character minimum is probably best. I think NIST just raised theirs to 15 as of April 2026. I generally try 16. I'd like, every little bit helps, and I'm going to leave the default 30-day password rotation. Obviously, you can adjust that to your needs. One note on this post-authenticated action, if you have, let's go ahead and configure that. In fact, I'm going to enable that. I'm going to put a grace period of 1 hour, and I'm going to just reset the password. What I'm saying here is when the password, when the account, if the account is active during a password cycle, we're going to give it an hour grace period, and then we're going to reset the password anyway. Generally, there's not a whole lot of issues with that because few organizations are running scripts or long-running processes logged in as a local administrator. They're typically running things in a domain context. So, but some other options are log off the managed account. Actually, let's go and choose that. Log off the managed account, and then to explicitly close the session if it's possible. And you also have one which is reboot the device. That's a dangerous one for me, so I don't think I'd ever do that one because we do have situations where computers are running overnight for maintenance purposes or backup tasks running along, something like that. So let's go ahead and use that log off so that we force the account off. And that is it. We are good to go. So in order to have our system's lab app, in this case, lab PC is a workstation, it's not actually running at the moment. They are still sitting in the default computers container. To make this whole process work, we just need to move their objects into the correct OU, and that's a domain server in this case, and then this is a workstation, or what I call domain computer. And we're good to go. To make this process, we could reboot the system, wait for the group policy refresh interval, or we can simply come in here, update, and run a force on the target system. Lots of other ways you could run it remotely. That's a topic for another day. In this simple example, we just need to make sure that the system refreshes policies. Now that it's done, I can come back in, and in previous versions of Laps, you had a separate administrative tool for that. Now it's just part of AD users and computers. So I can go to properties of the computer in question, and now I have this nice Laps tab. And as you can see, I get an immediate error saying, hey, I don't have permissions to decrypt it, which is perfectly normal in this scenario. That's because I never added my administrator account to my Laps admins. So let's do that. I'll log off, log back on. Start AD users and computers again. Go to my computer object, go to properties, lapse. Now I don't get an error message. I can see that the expiration was set a minute ago, or the password was set, and because it's set 30 days out from April 27th, it said it's May 27th, exactly 30 days. I can show the password, and there you have it. I can now copy this, log in through my remote management tool, paste that as a local administrator on that system. If I want to force a password change, the easiest way to do that is just click this button, expire now. You'll notice it updated the date. I go and click apply. Now when I come in here, I'll do a GP update refresh and GP update force again. And we can see it's completely successfully. I have a new password. So that's cool. So that's the easiest way you can see the current password. Of course, the next question is, what if I need to find that old password again? Well, that is done from a PowerShell session. Out of habit, I like to open a command prompt and then launch PowerShell when necessary, because I find myself quite often running scripts in and out of PowerShell. That's just me. So here we have a PowerShell privileged session, and the command to view the credentials, to retrieve them, is Get-LapsADPassword. Specify identity, the computer name, enter. Now, we can see, this also echoes information about the current setup. So we can see that the where the system is in the organization, in the tree. It's under lab domain servers. We saw that what the account being reset is as administrator. We see the retrieval was successful, but notice it's actually hidden here by a obfuscation string. That's because we're not. It did retrieve it, but to actually view it in plain text, we have to use one more command line option, which is AsPlainText. And now you can see semicolon K close bracket. And if I go back into AD users computers, I can see the same thing. Close bracket. So let's do one more thing here, which is go ahead and expire it one more time before I show you the ability to view the history. Now, the view to history, it's actually just as simple as viewing the plain text password. It's just a command line option, which is just to append, include history in the command, hit enter. Now we see 3 passwords, with the newest one being, we had the previous one of K bracket, now it's D&Q. So 3 passwords we've rotated now. And again, I can confirm that in AD users computers, D&Q. So there you have it. That was, I think, roughly 15 minutes to get Windows Laps set up on a domain and delegated to a Laps admin groups. Thank you for following along, and we'll see you in the next video.